Some pretty frightening news this week. Almost half of the tap water in the U.S. is contaminated with those so-called forever chemicals. That's according to a new study from the U.S. Geological Survey. And experts say that number may be even higher because they aren't able to test for all of the known PFAS. So, yeesh.
So I have a question for you, because as an old person, Dr. Payal Kohli joining us now, we always like to say, we used to drink from the hose. Was our water better then, before all these chemicals were finding their way into our water?
We've been using this for decades, these forever chemicals, and they're called forever chemicals because they linger in the environment and inside our body for hundreds, if not thousands of years. But how they're getting into our water, Tom, I think that's become more of a recent phenomena. And we're thinking it's contamination, obviously, from industrial plants, from factories. They make it into the sewer and then they make it into our water. But the fact that it isn't regulated is what really has me shocked, because
well, our water is processed, our water is filtered. It is not filtered for everything, obviously, or processed for everything. Is that what has to change, or how do we go about fixing this?
That's right. I mean, every single water processing plant knows how many of these chemicals are in there. The question is, we don't have limits set on what needs to be in there. So that's where the EPA has really sort of stepped up and said, we need to set limits that you can't have more than this amount of concentration of these chemicals in there. Because we're learning from the science that it's not just the concentration, but regular exposure, even if it's a very low concentration, is actually more dangerous than we had imagined.
So what are the health risks? Because, also, by the way, people are telling everybody to drink water all the time.
That's right. And I drink my tap water, so this study caught me off guard because you don't realize it. So, these forever chemicals have been linked to a host of problems. You can imagine, since they get into our body, they're linked to cancer, obesity, thyroid disease, liver disease, infertility, even other hormonal problems as well.
So when you say forever chemicals, it's because they don't biodegrade, they don't change, they are what they are, and they stay as they are. But do they stay in us forever, or do we pass them like we pass everything that goes through our filtration system that is our body?
So some of our organs are filtering these chemicals. So they have these strong alkylating bonds, but whether they get secreted into our bile, into our stool, into our urine, there probably is some elimination. But if you have constant exposure, you're taking in more and more chemicals. And these are not just in the water. They're in our carpets, they're in our food packaging, they're in our water repellent clothing, they're in our cell phones. So they're everywhere, they're ubiquitous. And that's the reason we've really started thinking about how they affect our health.
I was going to bring up the alkylating bonds, but I don't know what that means. So then I decided not to bring it up.
That's why you hear about clean products, especially like when it comes to makeup and cleansers and things like that. But so then does this mean like I need to get the filter on my fridge? Do I start drinking bottled water at all costs? But then that's not good for the environment.
And the plastics in the bottled water as well. So I would say here's what I'm going to do. Go on your local website, your water company's website, so Denver Water for me, look up and see what your tap water looks like, what the concentrations are. And if they are on the higher end, then you may want to think about putting a filter, a carbon filter, on the water that you're drinking, because that can trap some of it. Now, the caveat to that is you want to change it really often. Because remember, forever chemicals stick to everything. So you don't want to have a bad filter that's got a lot of chemicals stuck to it. Reverse osmosis, if you can afford that kind of a system in your home, that can also eliminate some of these chemicals. But really, this needs to be a multifaceted effort where we need to actually talk to the water processing facilities.
Does boiling do anything? That's not going to change anything. They are forever chemicals. They're almost, they just aren't going to change. That's why they're good at what they do.
That's right.
And bad once they make their way into our system.
They're supposed to repel oil and water. And they're even in some of our nonstick cookware, in fact. So it is very difficult. And the CDC has done studies that the majority of Americans are exposed to these chemicals, not just from water, but from regular sources. It's just about limiting the dose. And it's just about really collecting data as to how they affect our health, because these are hard things to quantify when we don't know how much our exposure is.
It needs to be, widespread, and they need to do that because underserved communities, of course, are going to pay the price.
Right.
Well, we continue to collect the data, and I have the whole weekend to look up alkylating bonds, so I'll do that.
Go for it. Do you want to spell it?
I look at my whole investment portfolios in bonds.
Do you?
Alkylating bonds. Or James
Those
Bond.
portfolios are not forever portfolios.
No,
I'll guarantee
believe me,
that.
I know. Dr. Kohli, have a great weekend. It's good to see you. Thanks.